Here we go.
Live. All right. Welcome back to Jay and Cindy Sit in a Tree. So we are battling a lot of technical difficulties. And so this is our third attempt to get this.
Third time's a charm.
So welcome to our podcast. Today we're going to talk a little bit about change.
What about it?
Well, it's going to happen.
It happens.
Change happens.
Because life happens.
Yes, shit happens. Oh, I cussed.
I'm the cusser. See, you're changing it. I'm the cusser.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about change and how it kind of freaks out people in a relationship when things are changing or the partner says things have to change. Things have to change
or that, Jay, we need to talk.
Oh, yeah, that's...
I hate that. That's the one. Or, yeah.
Yeah.
This isn't working.
When I get home, we're going to have a little talk.
Don't you just hate that? I hate that.
I need to get it in text, because then you don't have anything.
Oh, yeah. Then there's not even any expression.
I need to talk to you tonight when I get home.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. So change. But change happens. It can freak people out. I think change gets a really bad rap. But we know from experience, I think this is one of the things you wanted to talk about, that we know from experience that change can be really good, especially in relationships.
Especially in relationships. I think change needs to be, that you need to change.
Well, you're going to change,
right.
But instead of just life changing you and feeling like you're a ping pong ball being
The rest
Stop it.
The rest of our podcast will be done in
English.
English.
Do it a fourth time. I don't want to do it a fourth time.
We are
so
not
rather
stopping.
than feeling like a ping pong ball being like knocked around the universe, there are things that we can control, and we can control what we think works for us and what we think doesn't work for us, and we can change the things that don't work for us.
Correct. Well,
okay, we're done. I want to be done now.
We're gonna muscle through this one. So, change. So, I went through a lot of change before I met you.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And
huge.
So, without that change, when I met you, we probably would not have worked.
Oh, we talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, even if we had met like a year or two before it wouldn't have worked. Yeah.
So what happens was that I was earlier in the year that I met Cindy, I had found out that I was in a sinking ship of a relationship, and realizing that I was once again going to be failing in marriage. So I was seeing a counselor and talking to her, and when I realized that when I realized that I was having to close another relationship, I went to my counselor and I said, "Look, I'm done with these strong women. I want to meet somebody who's just a soft, sweet Southern belle." And that
I'll meet Juliet.
With her mint Juliet. And that so when I needed to, that I just wasn't such a strong person. I needed someone a little bit softer in my life. And so she said, "Well, you're not attracting these people. You're attracting strong women. So maybe the problem isn't with the women. It might be with you. You may be the common denominator," which I was. So I started working on finding out what I could do different in these relationships with stronger women, because I was raised by a strong woman. I had a very strong sister. They ruled the roost, and you just You didn't fight it. You just went along. And that's what I was doing in a relationship. But it was obviously not working in a relationship. So I had to find some way of standing up for myself, speaking my mind.
Okay, so why didn't you stand up for yourself? Why didn't you say no? Why didn't you promote that you and your wants, your needs, your beliefs were important? Why did you acquiesce? Why did you submit all the time?
Well, in my life at the time, I was a martial art instructor and owned a martial arts school, and I didn't want my partner to feel like I was Master J. And I wanted.
But part of the reason why they were attracted to you is because you were Master J.
Right. So I wanted to make sure that they felt equal in relationship, and that they had just as much strength and power as I did. I didn't want to be Master J at home. So
you wanted to do what?
I wanted to make sure that they're happy.
There
that
you
they
go.
felt loved and cared for, and that. So kind of backfired on me though, because what I would do is I would get softer and softer and softer to the point where I was just walked on.
Wuss.
And I would
Wuss.
really hate that word, by the way.
Sorry.
Especially when you're calling me.
Wuss.
Yeah, nice.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, you were.
Yeah. I was definitely not a strong person.
No, and we did a podcast about losing yourself in relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you would do. You would lose yourself in relationship. And then if you're with a strong woman, I'm told I'm a strong woman.
You've been told correctly.
We lose respect for people who allow us to just roll all over them. And when you stand and you say no, or you stand and you say I matter, and you stand, it gives me pause, and it helps me do what I need to do in relationship. It reminds me of my path, my huge changes that I made before I met you was learning that for me to be happy, I needed to soften.
You weren't happy being as strong as you were.
Well, it wasn't real strength. It was false strength. True power and true strength aligns with your heart. And I grew up learning that if you bark enough, you'll scare people away, mm-hmm. right? Or you will teach them to mind you, or they will respect you, mm-hmm. And I'm not telling you, I'm a woof, that kind of. So that's what I learned. I didn't learn that there was strength in softness. I learned that there was weakness in softness. So you had two things going against you in my home growing up. I was female, and if I was soft as a female, then I was vulnerable now in two different ways, and now I was weak and weaker, mm-hmm. right? So I learned the opposite. So
you learned to bark.
I learned how to, and sometimes I bite. Yeah.
When I barked, I was hit by a 2x4.
It's because you went,
no barking.
Yeah, no barking. So my journey, and I think what we've talked about in the last two podcasts that none of you have heard.
The ones we recorded today.
Yes. It's been an all-day podcast day. Was that I think an unfortunate part of our humanity is we are willing to change when we finally realize that we are in a really bad place that we don't like being in.
And what we're doing isn't working.
Yeah, so what we've done is what we've always done, and that's brought us to this place. So now we finally realize, like with the 2x4, mm-hmm. we need to change something about what we're doing so that we can find more happiness.
Right. Yeah, very good. So we changed, you were changing to be a softer, kinder, loving person. Mm-hmm. And I was changing to be a stronger person. I didn't have to get rid of my compassion and my desire to make my partner happy, mm-hmm. but I did have to learn to say no and to stand up for myself so that my partner could respect me.
And so you could respect you.
So I can respect me.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, whatever you say.
No, but the thing I love, so there are two things that I love about your path. First is that your intention was good. Your intention was not bad in your previous marriages and your practice wives. You wanted them to be happy, and that's so honorable. It's so wonderful, but the way you were doing it didn't work. The other thing is when you use your no with me, you really do use it with compassion. And because if you used your no in a really harsh way with me, it would backfire.
Right. You would dig your heels in and say,
Or,
oh, yeah.
Or I would go crawl in a corner in the fetal position, because I am, and people like me, people who haven't had those teachers and those mentors and were told that the bark keeps, everyone respecting you, right? And you'll be safe if you bark. Those people are only barking to protect their really sensitive hearts. So, and you see my sensitivity, right? And you see my strength. And I think that is just so beautiful. But change happens anyway, right?
Absolutely. It's gonna happen. So you can fight it and lose, or you can be aware of it, actually have control of some of the change. So other changes, once you get into relationships. So we've been talking, I kind of joked when we first got in a relationship that I'm just going to do a 5-year contract. That's
doing the contract thing now. Okay.
Yeah. So
we didn't talk about that the last podcast.
But the one before we did. I think.
So we're doing the best of.
And if we're repeating ourselves, I'm sorry, but we've got to remember what we said and not said. We actually said.
We're not going to know if we're repeating ourselves.
If we've repeated ourselves over and over this podcast with stuff we thought we didn't say.
Oh my God. The joys of podcasting.
This is a professional podcast brought to you by so anyway,
5-year.
5-year contract. And I believe that in 5 years, you go to your partner and you say, am I the same? I'm not going to be the same, but would I attract you enough that you would marry me again?
And vice versa.
Am I being a person that you want to be with? Is my being, is my personality, is my compassion, is the way I am to you, is that worthy of your love?
Wow, you said that better than you said it the first time.
I've had practice.
I love that. Yeah, I think, we're going to change because life happens. Mm-hmm. And hopefully we learn more about ourselves. Hopefully, right? Mm-hmm. So I kind of I was talking to one of my clients about the 5-year contract and how we jokingly say, every 5 years we'll kind of look at each other and go, okay, we still on? Thumbs up still or not so much, because we've learned that change happens. And we know through previous relationships that we can grow different ways, right? And we know from previous relationships that what we've liked at 20 isn't necessarily
it's going to be different.
What we liked at 40 or 50 or whatever. And some people are lucky enough to.
And I think even using the word appreciate. I think I talk to people that are very young and in young relationships, and they don't appreciate what they have. And I think as you get older, you learn to appreciate what you call the warts or the differences in a person, what makes a person non-perfect. But I think as we get older, we learn to appreciate a partner.
I think, I would say that I don't know if I'm going to appreciate your warts per se, but I accept them. But I deeply appreciate, and over the years, I appreciate even more the truth of who you are and your desire to spend more time in your truth, in that what Barbara Brennan would call your unique bouquet, right? Everyone has their unique bouquet of talents, gifts, character traits, moral fiber. And how you really want to stand more and spend more time there than you do in your bad habits, because we all have both.
Right.
Right? And we talked about this a little bit the last podcast that nobody heard.
We heard.
So yeah, so when we start relationship, we're both where?
At the beginning.
Stop it.
We're not?
We're on our best behavior,
We're
right?
on our best behavior, yes.
Ay, ay, ay.
We're not at the beginning anymore, so I don't have to show my best behavior.
Well, you see this all the time, and I know people complain about it all the time, how we showed up in the beginning. Everybody shows up in the beginning. You do things for the other person that you really don't want to do, but because you want them to like
when
you.
When we first started dating, you did X, Y, Z,
mm-hmm.
and now you don't do it anymore.
Because I didn't really want to do it in the first place.
You don't love me anymore because you're not doing the same thing you did.
Right, so so change happens even in relationship. First we're trying to stay in our best behavior, then our bad habits start coming out because we're around them more and we get more complacent, and then we have some big decisions to make in relationship.
Go on.
Well, because if people are spending more time in their bad habits, so what would be some examples of bad habits? What are your bad habits?
I don't have any. A bad habit would be not talking now, just coming home and turning the TV on and sitting there and popping a beer, sitting in your white tank top. Not you. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about a guy sitting there with a beer.
I didn't think you were talking about me, but there might be some listeners out there who come. So shutting down, so not communicating with your partner, right. Shutting down, shutting them out. That would be a bad habit. You're right. Okay, so we need
white tank tops are not bad habits. No. That's okay.
That's right. So this one is definitely funnier than the other two. I do have to say that. But some bad habits for me, being snarky,
right,
is a bad habit.
Yep. Me shutting down instead of talking,
mm-hmm. Avoiding.
Right.
So those are all bad habits. And the really bad habits, right, would be like addiction.
Mm-hmm. Of anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Affairs. Yeah.
Yeah, bad habit.
Yeah.
Abuse. So if we have a person that we fell in love with because they were on their best behavior, right? And then through time and through change, we find out they're limiting bad habits, and then we have to decide, where do they spend more time? So if they spend more time here in their bad habits,
mm-hmm.
we might have to make some decisions, right?
Right.
So, the reason why I brought this up is because I love how you do your best, and it's something I try to do too, is to spend more time in the truth of who we are. And we look at our bad habits as bad habits that we're working on, where we consider ourselves works in progress.
Right. Mm-hmm. And because we're works in progress, we are not mastered, so we are always needing to readjust to be better people for ourselves and our partners, and changing. Yeah. But yeah, I think change, sometimes people in their relationship, they see a person that they're in love with change for the worse and get into those bad habits that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know how to handle.
It's sad. Well, because it's sad and it's scary, and you're not in your bad habits all the time.
Yeah.
If it's an addiction like alcoholism, you're not drunk all the time. So those times that they're sober, they're nice, they're kind, they're sweet, they're hardworking, they're all the reasons why we fell in love with them, but then they start drinking.
Right.
Right. So it becomes a very difficult path to walk in relationship. right? But sometimes we have to walk away from that partner because they have to realize that they are the common denominator in their unhappiness, and they have work that they need to do.
And they're toxic to the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have work that they need to do, and it doesn't have to be as bad as addiction. It could be, anything.
So that's why I talk about having a 5-year contract, because you slowly, these addictions or bad habits come from stepping into a way of living that's bad, but it's usually not done overnight. It's little steps at a time. And then in the 5 years, you can step back and go, hey, am I the person that would attract you? Are you the type of person I would be looking for in a relationship now? If not, why? What's different? What do we like? What do we want? What do we need? And who are we to our partner? And it's kind of just a checks and a balance. It's just I want to always be a person that attracts you.
Mm.
And that's important to me.
Me too.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So is the 5 years from when we met, or is the 5 years from when we got married?
Technicality. It depends.
No, it's not.
It depends if you want to talk about that this year or not.
I know. See, so we're coming up on 10 years together, but only 7 years married.
So if I say it's from the time we got married, I've got 3 more years until the contract's over.
Well, me too. So you get to decide.
Okay. I'll decide on another podcast.
No.
You want me to do it right now, live?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I say we do it from the time we met.
Oh, that means we get to decide this year?
That's right.
That in November.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, listeners, what do you think?
This might be the last podcast.
What do you think we should do? We're coming up on our second 5-year contract. Should we keep it going? Or should we?
So Jay and Cindy sitting in a tree, not in a relationship, but talking to you about relationship.
From that tree, we have the chainsaw.
Okay. You look like you're holding a machine gun, but you sounded like a...
Well, it was a chainsaw.
Yeah,
but
you're holding the chain. That's very dangerous.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's why I use the chainsaw.
That's true. That's why you use the chainsaw.
So we would like to invite you to... we have had a lot of people that actually have sent us information for us to talk about. We talk to people all the time, and they're always saying, oh, talk about this, talk about that. If we don't talk to you in person, please feel free to send us emails, connect with us on our Facebook page. We're doing a Facebook Live right now. We're trying to do that once every 3 or 4 or 5 episodes. So contact us and let us know what you want to hear or talk about, or you have some advice or thoughts. We want to shout out 2 different people that we've met. One couple from Philadelphia that you actually met at the resort.
I did.
Bev and Kev. Hey, thanks for listening. And
I love that your names rhyme. That is so cute.
And then a couple I met just last night is David and Susan. And actually Susan right there has actually been watching our Facebook Live, so it's really cool.
Oh, Susan! Yeah. Hey! Dave and Susan, so I haven't met them yet. And they're from Pittsburgh.
So
Pittsburgh. So we have 10 people now that listen to our podcast.
All 10, maybe 11 now. So you're listening to Jay and Cindy Sitting in a Tree, KISSING.
Well, you said that really fast.
Because we're at the end.
May that never change.
There we go. Right, you got to turn this off too.